Hello everyone. Bill Maher unleashed a torrent of biting sarcasm aimed squarely at Melania Trump during his latest real-time monologue, delivering what may be the most devastating comedic dissection of the former First Lady's public persona to date. The HBO host's surgical takedown didn't just highlight Melania's infamous moments of detachment, it exposed the fundamental absurdity of her entire White House tenure as a performance of reluctant participation, provoking an immediate and characteristically thin-skinned reaction from Donald Trump that only served to validate Maher's central thesis. With the precision of a seasoned satirist, Maher turned awkward public appearances into a damning indictment of what he portrayed as the most transparently disengaged First Lady in modern history, while simultaneously holding up a mirror to Trump's fragile ego and the obvious cracks in their marital facade. Maher opened his segment with mock reverence, introducing Melania as the Marie Antoinette of Mar-a-Lago. If Marie Antoinette had said, "Let them eat protein bars," and then immediately regretted getting involved. This set the tone for a ruthless 9-minute evisceration that combined brutal punchlines with uncomfortably accurate observations about Melania's tenure as a First Lady, who seemed to regard public service as an inconvenient obligation. The comedian played a supercut of her most cringeworthy moments. The robotic delivery of her plagiarized convention speech, the visible irritation during official White House events, and issues dominate headlines. Voters' perceptions of a candidate's personal life still influence undecided voters, particularly women. Maher's routine, by giving permission to openly discuss what many had quietly observed about the Trump's relationship, may have inadvertently struck a campaign vulnerability Trump's team hadn't anticipated needing to defend. Melania's continued silence speaks volumes in the aftermath. While other political spouses have defended their marriages under public scrutiny, see Hillary Clinton's 60-Minute Man, Melania stands in another zip code, he joked, before speculating that her prenuptial agreement must include a no rallies clause enforceable by sniper. The audience roared as Maher imagined Melania's inner monologue during public appearances. "If I stand here motionless for 7 more minutes, I get another $5 million in the divorce." The segment reached its zenith when Maher contrasted Melania's icy demeanor with Trump's desperate need for validation, creating what he called the greatest mismatch since Amazon paired my purchase of The Art of the Deal with a recommendation for lithium supplements. Playing footage of Trump boasting about their perfect marriage, immediately followed by clips of Melania recoiling from his touch, Maher observed, "This isn't a relationship, it's a hostage negotiation where the hostage gets a Birkin bag for good behavior." The comedian saved his most savage blow for Trump's claims that Melania advises Maher's critique so devastating was its fundamental truth. Unlike political attacks that rely on speculation, every joke was rooted in documented moments the public had already witnessed, but perhaps not fully processed. By giving voice to the obvious, that Melania appeared miserable in her role, Maher didn't create a narrative so much as articulate what millions had already sensed. In an era where political comedy often struggles to break through the noise, this segment landed like a sledgehammer precisely because it felt less like an exaggeration than a magnification of comedy world erupted this week after HBO's real-time host Bill Maher delivered a brutal segment dissecting the painfully awkward dynamic between Donald and Melania Trump, a routine so cutting it provoked an immediate meltdown from the famously thin-skinned former president while the internet exploded with reactions. The viral moment, captured in a now widely shared clip, shows Maher at his sardonic best as he replays Melania's most cringeworthy moments of apparent marital discontent, from her infamous hand-swatting incidents to that unforgettable "I really don't care, do you?" jacket worn to visit detained migrant children. What made this particular takedown so explosive wasn't just Maher's jokes, it was the perfect storm of reactions that followed. Trump's predictable social media tantrum, liberals cheering the exposure of the marriage's apparent fraudulence, conservatives rushing to defend their leader's personal life, and perhaps most tellingly, Melania's continued silence as her husband raged on her behalf. Maher's segment began with what appeared to be a standard political monologue before pivoting into a Trump marriage that felt more like a courtroom presentation than comedy. The host played supercut after supercut of Melania's most visibly irritated moments, rejecting Trump's attempts to hold hands, rolling her eyes during speeches, standing stone-faced while her husband gesticulated wildly beside her. "This isn't body language," Maher deadpanned. "This is body semaphore spelling out, 'Get me out of here.'" The audience roared as Maher compared their dynamic to a hostage situation where the hostage gets a $100,000 outfit budget and speculated that Melania's prenup must include hazard pay for having to pretend to like him in public. But the real comedy gold came when Maher suggested Melania's much-discussed absence from the campaign trail isn't neglect, it's self-care. The jokes landed with particular force because they weren't just punchlines. They were observations about a marriage the entire world has watched unravel in real time through awkward photo ops and viral moments. Trump's reaction played out exactly as veterans of his administration predicted, an immediate, disproportionate response on Truth Social that only drew more attention to the original likely stems from the segment threatening two of his most carefully cultivated images, that of the alpha male whose beautiful wife adores him, and that of the untouchable strongman impervious to criticism. The internet's response became its own unfolding somebody that I used to know and back to black, while conservative commentators rushed to paint the segment as another example of liberal cruelty. Fox News' Sean Hannity devoted an entire segment to defend maybe Melania herself. Every eye roll and hand swat now immortalized as the ultimate power move from a woman who refused to play the doting political spouse, even as the whole world. I really don't care, do you? Jacket worn to visit detained migrant children, which Maher described as the most honest fashion statement since Prince Harry wore a Nazi uniform to a costume party. His delivery walked a perfect line between comedy and cultural critique, highlighting how Melania's apparent disdain for the role wasn't just personal preference, but a fundamental rejection of the performative aspects of political spousehood. What made Maher's routine particularly cutting was his decision to frame Melania's behavior not as failure, but as deliberate subversion. People say Melania was bad at being first lady, he quipped. No, she was brilliant at not being first lady. That jacket wasn't a mistake, it was a mission statement. This perspective flipped the conventional critique on its head, suggesting that Melania's much-discussed detachment wasn't incompetence, but a form of resistance. A theory that gained traction when Maher pointed out her conspicuous absence from Trump's 2024 campaign trail. Number sign Melania deserves better, and number sign Sad Donald trending as users created memes comparing Melania's expressions to characters from the Stepford Wives and Get Out. TikTok users remixed Maher's jokes with clips of Melania's most awkward moment in the incident as nonsense, but her public non-response is being widely interpreted as either indifference or confirmation. Fashion commentators have even noted that Melania was spotted in all the hallmarks of classic Trump projection, attacking Maher's relevance while demonstrating his own inability to let any slight go unanswered. What Trump seemed to miss, in his characteristic lack of self-awareness, was that his overreaction only validated Maher's central thesis, that the former president remains pathologically sensitive about any suggestion his marriage is anything less than perfect. Political psychologists watching the exchange marriage, seemingly oblivious to the irony of needing to reassure viewers about a couple's happiness. Meanwhile, body language experts and former White House staffers added fuel to the fire, with one ex-aide anonymously confirming to CNN that what you see in public is basically what happens in private, just with more eye-rolling. What makes this incident different from previous Melania-focused comedy bits is its timing. Arriving just as Trump attempts to present himself as a stabilizing family man during his 2024 campaign. The Biden team has already begun repurposing Maher's jokes in targeted digital ads, questioning whether someone who can't maintain his wife's respect can be trusted with the presidency again. Political strategist Late Night Posts, the former president called Maher a tired has-been whose show was failing, despite Real Time recently extending its run through 2026, while bizarrely bragging about his own poll numbers against handles. The former first lady's refusal to even acknowledge the controversy reinforces the very image Maher mocked, that of a woman emotionally checked out of her own marriage. Sources close to Trump's inner circle suggest Melania's segment wearing an unusually colorful outfit, a departure from her normally muted palette that some are reading as a subtle middle finger to the controversy. The cultural impact of this moment extends beyond politics into broader conversations about marriage, performance, and the lines between public and private lives. Therapists and relationship experts have begun using the Trump marriage as a case study in what happens when one partner craves constant attention while the other visibly resents being part of the spectacle. Sociologists note that Melania's apparent strategy of passive resistance, saying little but communicating volumes through gesture and expression, reflects how many women throughout history have expressed agency in oppressive situations when more direct confrontation wasn't possible. Even the fashion world has weighed in, with Vogue publishing an unexpected analysis of how Melania's clothing choices have functioned as unspoken commentary throughout her time in the spotlight. Maher's jokes worked because they articulated what millions had already sensed, that the image of perfect marital bliss Trump tries to project doesn't match the awkward reality. Sure, and I'm sure those conversations are fascinating. Donald, about the Middle East, have you considered shutting the fuck up? True to form, Trump's reaction was both instantaneous and self-defeating. Within an hour of the segment airing, his Truth Social feed became a torrent of misspelled rage, calling Maher a talentless hack, while accidentally tagging the wrong Bill Maher account and insisting, in all caps, that Melania was the most popular first lady in history. The desperation of the response only amplified Maher's original critique, creating a perfect feedback loop of mockery and overreaction that dominated political discourse for days. Particularly telling was Trump's focus on Maher's ratings rather than the substance of the jokes, a tacit admission that he had no actual defense against the portrayal of his marriage as a loveless arrangement. Melania's silence, meanwhile, spoke volumes, while past first ladies have defended their marriages under public unguarded moments. Whether this becomes a lasting vulnerability for Trump remains to be seen, but one thing is certain: the more he rages against comedians pointing out his wife's apparent disdain, the more he highlights the very dynamic he wants people to ignore. In the end,